everyone, my name is Sarah. I've never done this before, so I don't really know what to do, but I'm going to teach you how to do my everyday kind of makeup routine, and I hope you like it. So I always start with a clean face, because if your face isn't clean, then your makeup is just going to look bad in the end, so I don't understand the point. I'm going to start with the Smashbox Original Photo Finish Primer, and I'll be linking all of the products down below. So what I usually like to do is put some of it on my hand and then roll it into my pores. I really try to be delicate with my skin, and then I use the beauty blender and I just roll the primer into the parts of my skin where it gets kind of pory. Is that a word? Pory? But then I also have very dry skin around my mouth, so then I use the Tarte Hydrating Primer Base Tape, which is super watery, by the way, but it gets the job done. And I put that primer around the areas where I get really, really dry. So for me, that's my mouth. Now that we're done with priming, I do my eyebrows before I do anything else. I know some people don't do it this way. I usually do my makeup different ways almost all the time, but right now I'm really liking doing my eyebrows first. I'm gonna go ahead and do my eyebrows, and if you guys want a video on how I do my eyebrows, let me know. Otherwise, I'll be back. Okay, so now that my brows are done, I look kind of crazy right now. I'm gonna go in with my foundation, and just to let you guys know, I put my normal concealer on top of my brows, and I put a lighter concealer underneath my brows because I kind of like the lifted effect that it gives me. And now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna use the Too Faced Born This Way foundation, and I use a beauty blender to apply it. I'm basically just tapping it in. And I'm pretty heavy-handed when it comes to my foundation. I know some people like a more natural looking base, but I don't. Please, for the love of God, blend your foundation down your neck. Even if it's a perfect match, just do it. I also like to put foundation on my ears because my ears get really red and it almost looks disconnected. So now that we're done with my foundation, I go in with my concealer, and I use the Maybelline Fit Me concealer in the shade 25 medium. The way I apply my concealer is I put it almost in a triangle shape around my eyes because I kind of want that lifted effect where it's just kind of like snatched, I guess. And I also am very heavy-handed with my concealer because I am brown, and so I'm blessed with dark under eyes. I also like to apply my concealer a little bit on my chin because my chin gets really red, a little bit on my nose for highlighting purposes, and then I'll go in with my beauty blender and blend it out. I also like to pull my concealer onto my eyelids because it kind of makes a tacky base for me to put my eyeshadow on, and I actually don't set the concealer that I just put on my eyes with powder. I just pack on eyeshadow. I find that the eyeshadow is more pigmented that way. It's powder time. So I actually use the Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder in the shade 20, light medium, and I use a flat-ended Morphe sponge. And I actually bake underneath my eyes with this powder. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that there's absolutely no creases underneath my eye. And then press in with the powder. You cannot be afraid of getting powder in your eye. I also like to pull the powder down my nose, just down the side. This is before I've contoured or anything. I'm not really sure why. I feel like later when I contour my nose, it kind of leaves me some room. It leaves me almost like a guide, but you might disagree, I don't know. So while that's baking, I go ahead and take another powder. This one is translucent. I used a colored powder underneath my eyes because, like I said, I'm blessed with dark under eyes, and I think it helps with coverage. Take my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder and my Laura Mercier powder puff. I actually use a puff instead of a brush because I think it's more beneficial to roll in your powder like this. Because I think it disrupts the foundation that you just put down less, and it leaves you with a more kind of flawless finish. I feel like a brush disrupts your foundation. Yes, put powder on your neck. Okay, so now that I've set my face with my trusty powder puff, believe it or not, I actually take a small fluffy brush and I just swipe off the excess powder. Because like I said, my main goal underneath the eyes is coverage. So instead of taking a big powder puff and wiping it like some people do, I just want to dust it off. Okay, so now that our bake and our powder is nice and set, it's time for my favorite part, bronzing. I'm going to be using the new Fenty Beauty Bronzer in the shade Private Island. I'm going to be going in with the Morphe E4 brush, and I swirl around in the pan, tap off the excess, and start with my forehead because my forehead needs to disappear. Please, for the love of God, tap off your excess. That's my biggest pet peeve in makeup. Then when I'm done with the forehead, I'm gonna go down to my jaw, and I just follow my natural jawline using circle motion so it gets a more natural finish instead of just that swipe sometimes that you see. Then when I'm done with the jawline, I go into the hollow of my cheek and I pat like this. And then once the base is down where I want it to be, I go ahead and go back in with the circular motions. I actually bring my contour to like here, I want to say, because I like that kind of sculpted effect that goes all the way down. And some people disagree with me because they say that cheekbones are supposed to be super, super high up, but I disagree. Then when I'm done with my contour bronzer cheekbones, I go back in with the Maybelline Fit Me powder, same flat sponge from Morphe, and I like to cut my cheeks. I think the key to a good contour is really knowing your face structure, and I know that my jawbone ends right here, so I'm gonna cut my cheekbones where they usually cut. While my cheeks are baking, I go ahead and start contouring my nose. So I use the Morphe E62 and I go back in with my bronzer, and this is how I contour my nose. I actually get a lot of questions on how I contour my nose, and it's actually not as drastic as some people may believe. I go in with a small angled fluffy brush and I start right at the tip of my eyebrow, and then I blend down like that. So now that my nose is looking a little bit more snatched, I put a bronzer underneath the tip of my nose because I want that illusion of the nose kind of coming up. And right now, yes, the contour does look harsh, but I'm gonna go in with a small fluffy brush. It's actually a concealer buffer, but I don't use it for that, and it's from Vasanti. And I go in and I blend out my contour. And I also blend it into the hollow of my eyelids so it looks more natural. I feel like it's just more sculpted that way. And don't worry if you go too heavy-handed, because there's nothing a good blending brush can't do. And you thought I was done with my nose contour. Not quite. I actually go in with a flat-tipped paintbrush. And then I go back into my bronzer. And I put where I want my nose to look upturned. So right there. And I put a nice harsh line right there. And I go back in with my blending brush. and blend it out. And now I'm done with my nose contour. But we're not wiping off this big yet. I'm gonna go in with the Milani drugstore blush in the shade 11 Blossomtime Rose. It's a powder blush that I apply with the Morphe E48. So as you can see, this brush is a little dense, and that's because I like to pack on my blush because I think it blends nicely with the contour that way. And also, it's spring, so we wanna look cute and blushy. I also put a little bit of blush on the tip of my nose for that kind of, you know, cute girl effect. And I'll actually go back in with the brush I used for bronzer, and make sure that the blush and the bronzer are nicely blended together. Okay, now that we're done with the blush and the bronzer, I'm gonna go in with the Morphe M439 and wipe off this big. Okay, so now that basically my base is done, I like to go in with my first round of setting spray, and today I'm going to use the Urban Decay All Nighter. And while that's drying, I'm going to grab my highlighter, and I'm going to be using the Fenty Beauty highlighter in the color Hustla Baby. And I'm going to start in the small areas that I'm going to put my highlighter using the Morphe M506 brush. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm kind of a sucker for Morphe brushes. So the first place I'm going to put my highlighter is in the inner corner of my eye. Okay, I'm going to highlight my brow bone, and I'm using the same highlighter, and I'm using windshield wiper motions and packing motions to make sure that my brow bone highlight is blinding. Notice that I still haven't set my eyes. I've set everything but my eyes. I'm going to go back in with the same highlighter, and I'm going to highlight the tip of my nose. I think it's really important to use a small brush when you're highlighting these areas, because if you highlight too much, then it makes those areas look clunky, especially your nose. It'll make it look kind of wider. So take my advice. And instead of highlighting all the way down the bridge of my nose, I just highlight in between my eyes. Taking the same highlighter and highlighting my Cupid's bow. Then I'm going to be taking the Morphe 501, dipping into the same highlighter, and highlighting my cheekbones. The way I highlight my cheekbones is a little bit more on point than the way other people highlight it. They usually like to go all the way in like this, and I like to keep it right around this area. And obviously this highlighter is blinding, so I love it. And the reason that I use setting spray before I apply highlighter is because I really want the highlighter to stick to my skin and get this kind of blinding effect. And if you don't like blinding highlighter, it's all good. I'd recommend actually the Fenty Baby highlighter in Mean Money. It's more of a relaxed, natural highlight. Now, everyone's favorite part, or at least mine. I think I've said highlighter, bronzer, and eyeshadow is my favorite parts, but honestly, that's true. I'm going to be using the James Charles X Morphe palette to start this springtime look. And the color I'm going into first is Pinkity Drinkity. And I'm going to be using just a fluffy eyeshadow brush from Morphe, obviously. And the reason I'm applying such a light color first is because I really want this pink eyeshadow to kind of blur out as it goes along. So the way that I apply my base color for my eyeshadow is I take it on a fluffy brush and I start in the crease and I use circular motions. The great part about a base color is that you really don't have to be intricate with it. You just kind of blend it in, you know? Okay, now that my base color is set down, I'm going to be using the Morphe M433 brush from Morphe, and I'm going to be using the color Skip, which is kind of this beautiful, like, hot pink color. God, I love this palette. And I'm going to be stamping this in to the outer corner and into the middle of my crease. The reason I stamp my eyeshadow in is because I still haven't set that concealer yet, so this eyeshadow is really gonna stick to the base. And if you just start blending right away, sorry girl. I actually changed my mind. I'm gonna go all the way into I'm gonna go all the way around my crease. Okay, so now that this color is all stamped in and it looks kind of whack, I'm gonna go back in with the fluffy brush that I used for my base color, top off any extra color that might be on there, and use circular motions to buff this out. So now that that pink is all blended out, I'm actually going to pack the color Love That onto my lid. Love That is kind of this rich purpley color, but it still has a hint of pink in it, so it's gonna blend nicely. And don't be afraid, pack color on. We love color. Okay, now that I've packed that lid color on, I'm gonna go back in with my blending fluffy brush and make sure everything is blended seamlessly. And if you get any excess eyeshadow falling onto your cheeks, I'd take a nice fluffy brush, one without any color on it, and just kind of swipe the excess off of your cheeks. Do not take a makeup remover wipe. Okay, I'm actually gonna start with the under eye eyeshadow right now. So I'm gonna go into the shade B, which is this beautiful yellow color, and I'm going to start putting it underneath my eye. And then I'm going to use the same brush and use the color 518, which is an orange color, and put it on the outer corner of the lower line. And then I'm going to be using the NYX Vivid Brights eyeliner in the color Vivid Blossom, which is kind of like a lavender color. And obviously you can tell that this look is spring inspired. And I'm going to do wings. Okay, now that my wings are done, I'm gonna wipe this foundation off my lips and I'm gonna apply my lip line. I'm gonna go in with the MAC lip liner in the shade Toast and Butter, and I'm gonna line my lips. Maybe overline them a little bit. Who knows? Then I'm gonna go in with the Smashbox liquid lipstick in the color Stepping Out. And I use this color a lot. It's just a really pretty darkish nude because I don't really like light nudes. I feel like they wash me out. So now that I've applied my lip liner, I'm going to apply my mascara, and then I'm gonna put on some lashes, and then you'll see the final look. Okay, so I went ahead and took my hair down, and I applied Lilly lashes in the style Miami, and this is the finished look. So if you have any questions or any videos that you want me to do, let me know. I hope this video wasn't too terrible. Thank you so much for watching, and like and subscribe.